Hello and welcome to this new section on regulatory and ethical considerations and the first lecture of that in this course, Finance and Accounting Fundamentals. So in this section, we will give you some in-depth view of regulatory and ethical considerations in accounting, and we will talk about specifically in this lecture SEC and FASB compliance requirements. So, what are these SEC and FASB compliance requirements? Let's take a look at them. So, SEC is the US federal agency which is responsible for enforcing federal security laws, security in the terms of stock market securities, and regulating the security industries. The nation's stock and options exchanges and other related activities in organization. So what are these key SEC compliance requirements? First is that publicly traded company must file periodic financial reports with the SEC, and that includes annual reports in US Form 10K, quarterly reports from 10Q, and current reports Form 8K. Now, these reports must include audited financial statements prepared in accordance with the GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. Second, the companies are required to implement the internal controls and procedures for financial reporting to reduce the risk of the fraud, and these are laid out in Sarbanes-Oxley Compliance Act that we will talk about as we go forward in the next lecture. And these must also include the controls evaluated annually by the independent auditors. So you need to have the annual evaluation by independent auditors of what your controls are for implementing it, for reducing the risk of fraud. Then the SEC enforces rules against insider trading, which involves trading a public company's stock or other security by individuals with access to non-public information about the company. So insiders, people who know about the operations of the company, their trading is governed by this regulation. The SEC mandates detailed disclosures regarding the company's financial health, risk, and other material information that could impact the investors' decisions. And lastly, regulation for fair disclosure (FD). Now, this rule requires companies to disclose material information to all investors at the same time, preventing selective disclosure that could benefit certain individuals or groups. So these are the Securities and Exchange Commission SEC's compliance requirements. Then FASB compliance requirements, what are they? And what is FASB? FASB is a private non-profit organization which is responsible for financial accounting and reporting standards in the US. And these standards are known as GAAP. And here are some of the key FASB compliance requirements. Now, the first is the GAAP compliance itself. The company must prepare their financial statements in accordance with GAAP, and this includes adherence to principles such as revenue recognitions, expense matching, and full disclosure, as we had talked earlier. Now, the FASB periodically issues accounting standards update (ASUs) that update or modify existing accounting standards. Companies must stay current with these updates and ensure that their financial reporting practices comply with the latest updates. Then FSB standards dictate how financial statements should be presented, including the balance sheet, income statement, statement of cash flow, and the statement of shareholders' equity. FASB standards specify various disclosure requirements to ensure that financial statements provide comprehensive information to stakeholders, and this includes disclosure about accounting policies, risk factor, and related party transactions. And the last of the compliance requirements that we will talk here is the lease and revenue recognition. Recent FASB updates have introduced significant changes to the accounting for leases under ASC 842 and revenue recognition under ASC 606. Companies must ensure compliance with these standards in their financial reporting. So having had a look at these compliance by these two regulatory bodies, what do we do next? We've talked about Sarbanes-Oxley Act of Corporate Governance and Accountability, right? So we will talk about what are these requirements in the next lecture. So thank you so much for watching this first lecture on regulatory and ethical considerations. I hope you continue to learn new things, continue to enjoy, and I do look forward to see you again in the next lecture. Please feel free to message me. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer your questions, and do download the PDF file to read through those compliance requirements and understand in a lot more detail.